Greater Than 0% is a 501c3 nonprofit that's on a mission to share stories of organizations from around the world that are changing lives. We have weekly episodes featuring amazing nonprofits and monthly episodes interviewing top business executives. You can find us at gtzp.org on your preferred streaming or social media platforms.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Today we have David Michael, who is the Executive Director and CEO of Habitat for Humanity of the Tri-State. David, thank you so much for your time today.
It's great to be here, Joseph. I appreciate the invitation to come on board and talk about some things that are near and dear to my heart.
Yes, thank you. And now, so Habitat for Humanity is probably one of the more widely recognized nonprofits in the space. So I'm really excited to learn more about what you're doing in the Tri-State area. But before we do, what is the mission of Habitat for Humanity of the Tri-State?
Well, our mission statement is seeking to put God's love into action. We partner with people to build homes, communities, and hope. It's pretty simple, straightforward. My favorite part of it, though, is the hope side of the equation, the end of that. Most folks don't really associate the work that we do with building hope. That just is a really neat opportunity to talk to folks about how owning your own house creates a whole different arena of hope for a family that's never had that opportunity before.
Yeah. Wow. So why you? Why is this a decision you've chosen and a path you've chosen for yourself right now?
Well, I've been here in this role with Habitat for Humanity of the Tri-State now for 17 years. Just started the 17th year on August the 1st.
Congrats.
It's been a good run. I have to say that I've worked for not-for-profit organizations for the majority of my post-college career path. Spent a little bit of time working with some engineering consulting firm along the way, worked with a startup for-profit business here in the Huntington area that in my role that I was as a business manager, I could see myself working myself out of that position. So it was kind of time to get back in the nonprofit arena. And so I was able to accept the position with another not-for-profit organization for about 4 years before I came on board with Habitat. It's been interesting. All of my stops along the way in the nonprofit arena have all been about providing access to something that someone didn't have prior to whatever the project was, be it public infrastructure, water, sewer, economic development projects, whether it was access to a buildable site or job creations or a combination of the two, an access road into an economic development site. I did some recreation type projects and some historic preservation projects along the way. And it wasn't until this position came open that, after I interviewed and now I've been on board, like I said, for 17 years, there was always something that was, while it was very gratifying work of helping someone who didn't have access to those things gain access to that, there was just a little something missing along the way. And when we come back to Habitat and the mission and, being a Christian organization, it was kind of like a hand in glove fit for me. So that really was important for me to, as my next step along the career path. My pastor at my church, lead pastor at my church that we attend here in the Huntington area, and I've talked a lot about this. It's one of those things I struggled with for a long, long time during early years, middle school, high school, early college, post-college even, about full-time ministry. And my pastor and I talk about this a fair amount. And we did a table talk very similar to what you and I are doing now at our church one Sunday. It was back in June, I believe it was. And I talked to the congregation, or we talked about this whole kind of internal struggle about full-time ministry. What are you doing? How are you furthering the kingdom? And he, after talking about that for a bit, he said, you don't necessarily have to go to seminary to be a pastor or fill that role. I think you're doing that where you're at now. That would really meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
We do have an opportunity to minister to a lot of folks throughout our, the work that we do. But you don't have to be um, of Christian faith, a believer of any faith we're still bound by all the fair housing laws and regulations that everybody else is. So
Right.
it's just, for me, it's just a bonus.
Wow. Well, so you've been there for a while, and I'd love to hear your perspective on kind of what are some of the activities you did initially and how they've evolved. But before we get to that topic, for people that maybe have never heard about Habitat for Humanity, how would you explain it kind of in an elevator? I know we did the mission statement, but maybe more so in the eyes of the volunteers or in the eyes of the people that you're working with and you're impacting.
Sure. So we work with most Habitat affiliates work with folks who fall within the 30 to 60% of the area median household income. Those income levels are determined. We use HUD, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's income guidelines, so we don't just make those up.
Right.
We have data that we base that on. Some Habitat affiliates are, we're actually allowed by Habitat for Humanity International to go up to as much as 80% of the AMI of the area that you serve. A lot of folks equate Habitat with house building and the new house construction piece. And while that still is a large focus of the work that the Habitat 1,123 or so Habitat affiliates across the country do, and the work around the globe in the 70 countries that we work in, there's a lot more to the work that we do now, because not everyone needs a new house. Some folks want to, we have a program called Aging in Place. And that is simply a program that's geared toward typically seniors who don't want to move. They don't want to uproot from where they're at. They love the house that they're in, but it's fallen into a state of disrepair. And so we're able to partner with them and make necessary critical repairs to their house, be it, maybe an updated electrical plumbing system, heating and air, the roofs may leak and you put a new roof on. The windows may be, from the original windows that were installed in 1930 something. And so you're able to take those single pane windows out and put in an energy efficient window that makes the house a whole lot, function a whole lot more efficiently. We also do programming with veterans. There's the homeowner education piece that we do that is critical to the success of our future home buyers. And there's just Habitat's, I like to tell, it's kind of like an onion. You just keep peeling back all these different layers and you reveal all these different things that we do. It's much more than just that new house project with that single family or that individual who will be the new home buyer.
Right.
And that's another thing that sets Habitat apart from some similar organizations is our folks that apply through our program to as we, I shouldn't say get a house, but own a house.
Right.
They're just that. They're homeowners. They're home buyers, just like I am. A lot of folks in the country are home buyers. Big difference between my mortgage and a Habitat home buyer's mortgage is we don't charge interest at Habitat, so it's a 0% 20. Ours in our area, ours is a 25-year fixed 0% mortgage.
Wow. And then I also read that obviously they have some skin in the game in not only the loan process or the mortgage process, but also in the building process.
Correct. Yeah, we call that sweat equity.
Yeah, sweat equity. Yep.
Yeah, so I liken that to our home buyers earn their house twice. On the front end, they're providing their blood, sweat, and tears, as well as a down payment and first year's homeowner's insurance payment and that kind of thing. And on the back end of it is where the 0% Habitat mortgage kicks in, and that helps. We ensure that every home buyer that we have is not paying greater than 30% of their monthly income for housing.
Yep.
That's the last thing we want is someone to go from either being homeless or being cost burdened with excessive rent to owning a house that they can't afford, and it ultimately ends up in foreclosure. And that's just an awful thing to go through. We get to know our home buyers because they do spend time on the work sites. They come into our office and do homeowner education classes. We sit down and talk with them from the application piece all the way to the end when we dedicate the house, and then we service their mortgages here in a house. We're currently serving 68 mortgages here in house for our home buyers. So we get to see them on a frequent basis because it's a lot of folks still bring their payment into our office on a monthly basis and drop it off. And it gives us an opportunity to check in with them and say, hey, how's it going? How's Susie doing in school, or how's little Johnny doing in college now that when she started in the program, when you guys started, he was an infant and now he's in college or something.
Yeah.
It's just a great opportunity to keep that connectivity piece going.
Oh. Fundamental question: why is there a need for Habitat in Tri-State? What are some of the reasons why you guys are, functioning?
Well, we were founded in February of 1990. So we've been around for 33 years now and going on 34. And the need for affordable housing has never been greater than it is now.
Yeah.
We have interest rates. I believe, we're looking at folks, if you're going out to the conventional mortgage loan market today, you're looking at 7, 6.5, 7, 8%, depending on your, credit score and various other, other factors that go into that. Folks are they're just, with inflation, the cost of housing, rental housing, especially here in our area, we have several universities. And there's a lot of folks that are, it's university rental market housing. And
yeah,
it's just crazy some of the amounts that folks are paying in rent. And that reflects down not to the non-college student population. It kind of trickles down. Well, if I can rent my apartment or house for, $2,000 to 3 or 4 college students, well, I can do the same thing with the family down the street. And folks just can't afford it. You end up paying greater than 50% of your income on housing on a monthly basis, and you have zero money left over to do anything. So folks are putting, it's just this vicious circle. So when they can't afford to do something and they have access to a credit card, well, they're going to the grocery store, and instead of paying cash for their groceries, they're putting them on a credit card that has 28, 29, 32% interest now.
Yeah.
It is a vicious cycle. And coming still kind of on the backside now of COVID, when COVID hit and the world kind of shut down for a period of time and folks were doing literally everything from home, and we're still in that arena. We're still in that time frame where folks are still working from home. There's a lot more students who are homeschooling. There's a lot more access to college classes online. And it's still just as critical now to have a safe, secure, decent house to live in to do all those things. It's just, and be able to afford it is the other part. That affordability piece is huge for us. One of the other steps that we took starting in 2008 that we've carried forward to now is we started making some incremental changes along the way. Took us about 2.5 years to get to this point, but we started making changes to how we build our houses. It wasn't that we were building a bad house prior to that. We just upgraded. So we call it a Code Plus house now. We used to build to what was then 3 or 4 years ago was Energy Star certification standards. We still build to that certification. We just don't get that certification anymore. Starting next year, we'll go back and start getting that certification again, though, for each of our new house projects that we complete. From that time moving forward. So they're super energy efficient. They're affordable on the monthly payment side. They're very functional spaces. They're not, we're not a custom builder. Our houses, we call it safe, decent, affordable, and energy efficient housing.
Yep. Oh. So in your intro and in the mission statement overview, you briefly touched on the hope aspect of homeownership and what it creates. Could you elaborate a little bit on that and kind of what is kind of the mental and experience that these folks have that maybe have never owned a house before and now they do? Like how is owning a house so much different than just renting?
Well, there's a lot of different aspects of that. One is the security piece. A lot of times we encounter folks who have been evicted multiple times, whether it's of their own cause or some other factor that's gone into that. When you own your house, the only way, this is kind of a bad thing to say, the only hammer that I have is if someone doesn't pay their monthly payment, we are just like any other mortgage lender, we can foreclose.
Right.
Like I mentioned earlier too, that is a very painful process for us to go through because we do get to know our home buyers so well.
Yeah.
It has unfortunately has happened, but I think the security piece, getting back to that, folks don't, they're not couch surfing. They're not uprooting their family from one apartment to another time after time. They're able to settle in and grow roots right there in their house. We allow our home buyers to choose their building site, so they choose the neighborhood that they live in.
Yeah.
They get to see what that looks like because we've constructed 153 houses so far.
Wow.
Not including the home repair projects that we've done and some other projects we've done along the way. Those are just new house projects. And you can see the impact in the neighborhood, and you can drive by. Yeah, you can identify our houses, and I'm proud of them. I think it's great that you can go by any block in our community where we've built houses and say that's a Habitat house or that's a Habitat house. I think that's fantastic. The other side of the hope piece is on the financial side.
Mm-hmm.
Because our mortgages are as affordable as they are, it gives folks an opportunity to start building wealth. Not only do they automatically, when folks come into our housing program and we close on their mortgage documents, their mortgage loan, just like any other lender does, there's already equity in that house, in that property, because they put in, like we talked about earlier, the sweat equity side of it.
Yeah.
They've helped build their house. They know. They're not going to come out being a master electrician or a licensed plumber, but they know how to repair a leak, or they know how to change a light switch if it goes astray.
Yeah.
Call an electrician to come out and do that. But there's the wealth building side of it as well. Folks, we do about every 3 years, we do a home buyer survey, a homeowner survey, and we're getting ready to roll one out for 2024. That will, one of the first questions that we ask in that survey every time we send it out, this will be about our 6th time to do that, is, two questions. One, were you on public assistance of any kind, whether it's for housing, food stamps, whatever it may be, prior to owning your Habitat house? And then once you've been approved and have lived in your house, are you still on any kind of public assistance? Mm-hmm. And the last time we did that survey, literally 100% of the respondents were completely off of any kind of public assistance, and they were self-sufficient.
Yep.
Which is another part of that hope process, is the self-sufficiency side of it. Yep. You're not relying on Uncle Sam, or you're not relying on a relative to bail you out of a situation that you may have gotten yourself into. Folks are actually setting aside money. They know that ultimately down the road, their refrigerator is going to go out. The heating and air conditioning system is going to have an issue. So they're setting aside money to make those repairs or to do the upkeep and maintenance on their houses. And it's critically important to the life of their house.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned the homeowner education process. I'd not heard that this was a part of the programming that Habitat provides. What is that a requirement for everyone to go through that program, or what does that provide?
It is a requirement of every future home buyer to go through a series of homeowner education classes. We're fortunate here with my Habitat affiliate. My homeowner services coordinator is a licensed mortgage loan originator, and she is a certified home buyer counselor. So we did both of those steps to just lend more credibility to the program that we offer to the public. And that education piece, they cover the classes. They get 40 hours if it's a couple. They get 40 hours of sweat equity credit for that. If it's individual, they get 20 hours. But they cover everything from budgeting, how to manage your money, how to choose your homeowner's insurance, because by and large, the vast majority, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer, but the majority of our home buyers are just that, first-time home buyers. So they've never had to go out and search for homeowner's insurance. There's legal aspects of home ownership, how to be a good neighbor. And then we also offer, my construction staff comes in and does a home maintenance class. And it's just a very basic, this is how you wash your siding. You need to clean your gutters out at least twice a year. Just simple things that a lot of us who have owned a home for a while, there's just things we know. I was fortunate. My parents owned their house when I was growing up, and I got to watch my dad do these things, or I got to pull right alongside my dad, and he would say, come help me do fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And so he taught me those skills, and so now I get to go now that they're older and well, my dad will be 81 in December, my mom will be 81 in April. They don't need to be on a ladder to clean out their gutter, so I go up to their house and do that for them a lot of times, and it's beyond the gutter piece, but it's just if you need to how to paint. If you want to change the
Yeah.
color of your room, you can't just go in and throw paint on the wall. There's a little bit more to it than that. So they teach those kinds of skills as well as the learning side of it as well. With again, getting back to the financial management piece and some
Yep.
other odds and ends along those lines.
Wow. Oh. Before we started rolling, you also mentioned kind of a unique aspect of the tri-state arm is the veterans aspect of what you all do. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you're serving veterans.
Well, we have a couple of programs. 2012, we started working on a partnership with our local VA Veterans Affairs Medical Center through their Community Resource and Referral Center, who works with, still to this day, works with homeless veterans in our community and getting them housed. That is on the rental side, and I could spend hours talking about this whole thing. We won't want to. I don't want to bore your audience with that, but it's a really neat program. We rolled out in conversation with the case management staff at the VA that we work with and the potential veterans that we will be serving through this program. We spent a year and a half in the program design piece just to kind of hone in, because we had never worked directly in that space. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing this and doing it correctly.
Right.
So we narrowed down to the greatest need was for individuals and couples that needed the next step in the housing continuum. We were able to prove to the VA and others that we could put two veterans in two brand new, what we call veteran cottages, for the same monthly payment that one of those either individuals or couples was paying to rent in our community.
Wow.
And we actually, when you look at the hard numbers, it's actually more of a 3-to-1 ratio.
Jeez.
So we have constructed 12 of our veteran cottages to date, and I say cottage because they're one bedroom, 640 square feet.
Yeah.
They're amazing little units. They are super, super energy efficient. We build those to the exact same construction standard as we do our regular, typical Habitat houses. The big difference is it's just for an individual or for a couple. It's a one bedroom, so we can't have, we don't need kids and grandkids and brothers and sisters and a multiple, more than two people in that space. It's just not large enough.
Yeah.
But they, are the affordability piece. And when I say this to folks, they kind of go, there's just no way that you do this, but we do it every day. We have a 0% Habitat mortgage, and then we have all but one of these are in the city of Huntington, West Virginia. So on behalf of the city, in addition to escrowing normal things, property taxes and homeowners insurance, we also escrow their municipal service and refuse fees. So for those 11 home buyers that are living in the city of Huntington under this program, to own their own property across the average of the 11 is about $285 a month.
Jeez.
To own their own space.
Yeah.
And then we also give our veterans an opportunity to choose either a 20 or a 25-year mortgage.
Yep.
Some have a little bit higher service-connected disability and are able to afford a shorter term. We also had no prepayment penalty. So if they want to go to a 25-year term and they pay it off in 16 years, then great. We'll have a mortgage burning and do the paperwork and they own it outright and down the road they go. It's absolutely. So this program has become a model over time. We rolled out our first two houses, broke ground on September the 11th, 2014. And literally 60 days later, November the 11th, 2014, we dedicated they were 600 square feet back then. They're 640 square feet now, but we dedicated two of our veteran cottages 60 days from the day we broke ground. Was absolutely incredible for us.
Wow.
To be able to house two folks who have served our country and been homeless, on our streets. One of our gentlemen, one of our soldiers who had been homeless, he was an Army veteran. He was homeless in our community for 36 months and got connected with the folks at the VA, had been renting for about 2 years, had stabilized his physical and mental health issues that he was dealing with. A lot of our veterans who are on the streets don't even have a driver's license or a social security card or can't find their DD-214, or there's just a lot of things that go into that equation. And by working with the VA staff, they're able to, that's what they deal with on a day in and day out basis. That's not something that we do.
Right.
But it's been a really great partnership. One of the most gratifying pieces is just being able to partner alongside those who have served our country and provide them with an opportunity. It's really, soldiers, and I shouldn't say just soldiers, those who have served in the military are taught self-sufficiency at a very, very early time when they're in, training, boot camp, whatever you want to call it. And that population doesn't want help sometimes. And it's just a tough nut to crack. Yeah. Not everyone has as far as the Habitat side of the equation goes, not every Habitat affiliate is close to a VA medical center or another VA facility like we are here in our community. We're fortunate that we're able to establish those relationships and rely heavily on that side of the equation to roll out this housing model. The other part of this that's kind of evolved, or I would say kind of evolved, has evolved into a pilot program we're in year 2 of. We're working directly with Central Office, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and Housing and Urban Development, as well as the Veteran Bill Department at Habitat International on a rollout of this housing model where there's a housing voucher that's very similar to, in characteristics, to a Section 8 HUD housing voucher, rental voucher, that is called the VASH. It's VASH, Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing. So the VA provides the supportive housing, the support piece of it. Habitat's providing the supportive or the housing piece of it. And the beautiful marriage of this is, and we didn't know this until about 3 years ago, that voucher, instead of being only for rental, actually can go to home ownership. Wow. And as long as that veteran qualifies for those benefits, the counseling or the case management piece that the VA provides continues on throughout the life of that mortgage. Wow. Where prior to us gaining that knowledge, as soon as we closed on the sale of their house, the case management side of the equation ceased. And that created a whole other set of issues that we just weren't, as an organization, just weren't equipped to deal with. We had 2 of our veterans who, one had given up his house after living in it for 5 years. Unfortunately, he walked away from it, and 6 months later, he overdosed and died. If he still had access to that case management piece, the outcome may have been the same, but it may have also been drastically different. Right. Then another 6 months after he passed, we had another veteran who died from suicide as well. And that was the impetus for us having discussions with the VA and how can we make this better for our veterans, not us from an organizational perspective, but more on who we're serving through this program and how they can be successful home buyers and live a long, healthy, safe life in their new house. Yeah. It was heart-wrenching to go through both of those occasions for both my staff and I, because we just weren't equipped to deal with that. Thankfully, the VA has provided us resources to not only help my staff and I deal with situations like that and identify possible triggers that could come along for folks that may be having those suicidal thoughts. They've also provided us resources that we can provide to the families of the survivors of folks that may have to go through that same type thing that we did, except more on a personal level because it's their family member. Yeah. Wow.
What does the future hold?
Well,
what do you hope to see, 5, 10 plus years from now?
Well, we are still kind of new into our 6-county Habitat tri-state space. Yep. We have 2 counties in West Virginia, 2 counties in Ohio, and 2 in Kentucky. Our strong suit, if you want to call it that. Our ace in the hole is still in our two West Virginia counties, where one of the two we were originally founded in. So we're still kind of feeling our way through this whole expansion. We have 2,400 square miles in our service area now, which is huge to take up and try to figure out our way through. So it's very rural in nature. If you look at the map of where we're at, we're right along the Ohio River, southeast Ohio, western West Virginia, eastern Kentucky. And by and large, once you get off of those river communities, out of those river communities, it gets very rural in a hurry. Just as for instance, we have less than 140, well, right at 147 people per square mile in our service area. So it's a challenge just figuring out those housing solutions and working in a more rural setting, because we typically have worked in sort of, for us, it's an urban setting. I know a community with a population of 50,000 in a lot of places around the country, folks are going, well, that's just one neighborhood, or that's a 2-block area here, whatever. That's the second largest city in the state of West Virginia is Huntington, at a population of just a shade under 50,000. So that, and again, that's our strong suit because we've worked there for 33 years. As we've grown into this space, or growing into this space, we want to be able to build houses every single year in all 6 of our counties. So growing that takes on a whole bunch of different formats for us. That's going to be a staff increase. The other side of it is on the partnership side with organizations, churches. In particular, one of the things we really, really like to work with and have a really long relationship with, 2 in particular, are the vocational schools or career and trade center schools here in our communities. We have 8 now in the 6 counties that we work in, and we haven't established those relationships yet with the other 6, but we're working on that. And once that happens, those students are able to come out of the classroom, work right alongside my construction staff and our volunteers, and it's like a force multiplier. The house production increases exponentially, and those students get hands-on, real life, real time, just like even though they're not being paid, but just like they're working for a paid contractor for their, or maybe go out and start their own business. It kind of gives them a taste of what that would be like.
Yeah.
The other opportunity that they get is working right alongside our home buyers, because they're required to put in at least 100 hours of sweat equity on the construction of their own houses. So there's this, and then there's the giving back to the community piece as well. That is kind of, so it's kind of this really neat, it's just a really cool picture to paint when you start talking about working with juniors and seniors in high school, adult education, adult learners who are doing heating and air conditioning or, whatever it may be, and then getting them out to help us out. It's just a great opportunity. Some of our high schoolers in particular, we've had a few that have actually taken the step to either join a local union, say the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers or the Plumbers Union, the Carpenters Union, and become apprentices there with the goal of being, a licensed electrician or a plumber or whatever down the road. We've actually had a couple others who have partnered with, I guess you can partner with your parents or your family, and have joined in on a construction company and really have taken that deep dive. And it's not solely because of the work that we've done with them or they've done with us, but that's a large part of it.
Wow. There's so much more than just the kind of the initial assumption of what Habitat does. So thank you so much for going into the details and the 99% of other things that are going on behind the scenes. Wow.
So one other thing that's really cool, and this is on the student side of the equation, I haven't been able to research this to say this with 100% surety or 100% fact, but I think we may be the only Habitat affiliate in the country who has worked with a group of middle school shop students. We have a group that we've worked with 2 years in a row, April of last year, April of this year, in Wurtland, Kentucky, which is one of the poorest school districts in eastern Kentucky. They have a shop class at their middle school, so 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who, age 16 is that's the minimum age for an active construction site for Habitat.
Yeah.
Obviously, those students aren't 16 years old, but since this became a school project, we were okay with that, and we're able to work out all the behind the scenes details on that. So the day we do our wall build, and that's the project we do with them, is a wall build. My construction guys will pre-cut everything, label everything, load everything on our truck. We transport it to the school, which is about a 45-minute drive for us. We get there early enough, get everything set up. They bring the students out. The students spend the morning pounding nails. That's hammers and nails. At the end of once all the walls are completed, we stand them up in the parking lot and they gather around. We screw them together so they don't have to stand there and hold them for, while I talk, and whoever else talks. And it's a great opportunity to step back with those students and say, look what you've accomplished. You've helped now another family that has not had access or not been able to have the opportunity to achieve, if you want to call it the American dream of owning their own property, owning their own house. This is the start of that. We did that. First year we had 47 students. Second year we had 62. That was a large group to take care of for 3 hours.
Yeah.
They did a fantastic job. We're already in planning stages for this current school year, for April of next year, 2024, to do the same project for a third time. And the community has just bought into it hugely.
Wow. Well, so people that are listening that are inspired and want to get engaged, probably in the tri-state area mostly, how can they get engaged? What type of engagement do you look for?
Well, we have, by and large, a lot of the labor that is provided on our house construction side is provided by volunteers.
Yeah.
And that's step number one, if you want to call it that. We use about 2,000 hours per typical 3-bedroom, bath and a half, soon to be 2-bath house is about 2,000 hours of volunteer time. So if we build 8 houses a year, that's 16,000 hours of volunteer time that we need. And we're gracious enough that our community has stepped up in a big way and helped us out with that. Having students at Marshall University next door to us is kind of convenient as well. Same thing with our high schools in our area, because of those students need to do community service. So we become one of those organizations that they like to do community service with, thankfully. We have opportunities for folks on the professional level to serve on our board of directors. That's an all volunteer space as well. I've got 16 board members currently. My bylaws say minimum of 15, maximum of 20. So I do have a couple open spots if somebody would be interested in reaching out to me and talking with me about what that would look like. I have folks that have been educators. They're currently employed by, I have a lady in one of my counties who works for a counseling agency. I have 2 realtors on my board. I have a business consultant on my board. I have bankers on my board. Yeah. And I have some retired folks on my board as well. And it's really interesting, kind of a cross section of our community, which is what we want. We don't want our board to look, I hate to say this, but we don't want it to look vanilla or plain. We want it to be representative of those that we're serving. And while we're not perfect at it by any means, we do a pretty good job of hitting that mark. The other place that folks can help us out is, we're like every other Habitat affiliate. Property is golden. And we've been very blessed throughout my time here that folks have chosen to donate property to us in order to build our houses on in the future.
Yeah.
So if folks have that piece of property that they just don't know what to do with, or they're tired of cutting the grass on, again, reach out to us. We'll put it to good use eventually. And then there's always the monetary piece. We're like every other nonprofit organization. We do fundraising events. We have now thankfully we have 2 Habitat for Humanity restores, one here in Huntington, West Virginia. The other one that we just opened July of last year is in New Boston, Ohio. Folks can donate items to sell in the restore. They can also volunteer their time there. We use between 250 and 350 hours of volunteer time between the 2 restores each month. So folks are very gracious in stepping up and helping us out with that as well.
Yeah.
There's just and the other thing, you don't have to have any kind of knowledge of construction.
Right.
If you've never had a hammer in your hand or never held a paintbrush, I still encourage you to come out and volunteer. My construction staff and our regular construction volunteer crew are absolutely great at educating folks about how to do whatever the task of the day is and to do it safely, which is of paramount importance to us. The last thing I want to have is someone step on a construction site and get hurt.
Yeah.
We provide all the tools. We provide all the safety equipment. My construction guys, two of my construction guys are CPR, first aid, AED certified. They've all been through OSHA classes. So it's we believe in safety first by all means.
Wow. Well, David, I think we covered everything that we can within the time frame. Is there anything we missed or anything you want to leave us with before we wrap up?
Well, we just finished a really neat event, and I'd like to just kind of plug it for folks to think about for next year. We just had on August 12th an event that was called She Nailed It. It was the end of our Women Build Week.
Yeah.
It's a really fun week for us as far as the construction side goes, because all of the volunteers that throughout that course of the week are all female, except for my construction staff and my regular construction volunteer crew.
Right.
Everyone else that comes in is all female. We culminate that event or that week-long process and event on Saturday, again, called She Nailed It. It's a women's nail driving competition for teams of 4.
What?
It's absolutely
so fun.
It's a blast to be a part of, to just to sit back and watch. So that's an ongoing fundraiser for us. We challenge our teams to help us raise money for that. We had a really, really great silent auction, food, and then the MC was a 2-year previous participant in the nail driving competition who was a former radio DJ in our area that lots and lots of folks know her. And she did an absolutely incredible job this year emceeing our event.
Wow. Awesome. Well, great. David, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate the work that you're doing for the past 17 years and educating us on what Habitat does beyond just obviously the core of building these homes. So thank you so much for your time. We're honored to share the story, and people that are listening, please get engaged. We'll share all the links in the show notes. But David, thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Greater Than 0%. To find more episodes or to have your organization featured on the podcast, you can find us at gtzp.org on your preferred streaming or social media platforms. Find your cause with Greater Than 0%.